Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Troy Ounce, the Silver Stacker. Today, I want to share how I accidentally discovered junk silver quarters and how a simple sound changed the way I look at money forever. Now, this wasn't something I learned from a book or from YouTube, a YouTube video at first, but I was actually counting vending machine money, just loose change. And as I was stacking the quarters, as I was dumping the quarters out, some of them sounded different. Now I thought somebody threw some slugs into the pile. Sometimes people would do that to try to get whatever out of the vending machine. They would use fake money, right? They would use slugs, things that would mimic money in terms of shape. But no, not these. I kept dumping the change out, thinking there was a slug. I kept picking it up and dropping them back into the pile until I found the ones making the sound. As a matter of fact, the sound was something like this. Do you hear that ring? It was kind of like a harmonic ringing sound when it hit just right. I found the quarters that made the sound. They were the same size as all the other quarters. They were the same year range. But when they hit the table, they had a distinct ring, almost like a bell, compared to the dull thud of all the other quarters. That sound stuck with me. I separated those quarters and checked the dates. Now, it wasn't all of the quarters that you see here, but it was some of them. Every single one of the quarters that were 1964 or earlier had that ringing sound. Now, I didn't know enough about the quarters at that point. I found the ones that rung. I thought they were silver. It's the only thing that came to my mind at the time. I put them away. And there were some years later, I looked in that container I put them in, and they were tarnishing. I knew they were silver then. I started researching silver, and come to find out, every one of those ringing quarters that were 1964 or earlier, I learned something that probably most people didn't know. The U.S. quarters minted in 1964 and earlier are actually 90% silver. These are what stackers call junk silver, not because they're junk, but because they're circulated everyday coins. Each of these quarters contain about 0.18 troy ounces of silver. That means even a small handful of them adds up really fast in terms of monetary value. In fact, today, in 2025, December the 22nd, if you were to melt one of these quarters, in fact, if you were to sell one of these quarters for melt value, it's around, you would receive in return about 12.5 US dollars for one quarter. So you could see here the pile that's here. These were collected through the years. So each one of these, if they were sold to be melted at this point in time, I'd get about $12.5. Now, unlike paper money, silver has held value for thousands of years. That's why I believe silver and gold are God's money, real, tangible wealth you can hold in your hand. Why this matters? Most people spend these without a second thought. Hey, I used to do it. I almost did that time. In fact, If I hadn't thought that it was a slug, I wouldn't have even looked for it. But that sound, that silver ring, woke me up. It made me realize, with some research, that real money was still hiding in plain sight, mixed in with everyday change. That moment sent me down the path of silver stacking, learning about sound money and protecting value outside the system. If you're new to stacking, start paying attention. When you go to the grocery store, wherever you go, wherever you see change, if you find change on the ground, if you receive change from someone, always look at it. Look for the date. In the quarters, if we're talking about quarters, in which we are right now, look at the date, 1964 or earlier. You're looking at a silver, 90% silver quarter. If your eyesight's kind of bad, turn the quarter on the end and look at the edge. If you see no copper tinge, that's silver. If you notice there's some tarnishing, that's silver. If they make that sound, that harmonic sound that's different than all the other money, you'll know that's silver. But it's the date. It's the date you need to look at. Check all your change at home. You might be already holding real silver and not even know it. If you found this helpful, this information, please consider subscribing. This channel is all about physical silver, gold, and real money thinking. Thanks for watching. Stack smart, stack silver. This is Troy Ounce, the Silver Stacker.